Thank you. Yes, so that was the 17th verse, and so yeah, the 17th verse, surrendering with those four consciousness. Let's just quickly look at that 17th verse before we go into the 18th. So Krishna said, intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge. There were four things that we have to fix, and that cleanses us of our misgivings and gives us complete knowledge, puts us on a path of liberation. So all these four, right? So there's the intellectual faculty that we talked about, and then there is Nishtha and Tatparayana. So when we surrender our intelligence and mind, or when we absorb in Krishna, which is a function, absorption is a function of mind, then comes Nishtha, and then comes Parayana, right? So one may fix their mind intelligence, but there might be no Nishtha, no faith. So that's why Krishna is making it specific that, no, I need all four of those, all four of those things. Right? Tatparayana means towards Krishna, making Krishna our goal. In the 9th canto, there is Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a story of Pururava. Pururava he fell in love with Urvashi. And he was so madly in love with Urvashi that he did a yagya to get Urvashi back. So Urvashi she's in a upper planetary system. Okay? So he was on the earthly planet. So he did a yagya, and then after that yagya, Lord Vishnu appeared, because Vishnu is Yagyapati. But Vishnu's beauty didn't attract him. He asked for Urvashi. So instead of being Tatparayana, he's like Krishna our goal, he was Urvashi Parayana. Right? So it's not just that we should have Krishna as the object of meditation, but he also should be our goal. So that is the goal. So the goal of our spiritual life is to make spiritual life our goal. So spiritual life, it should be transformational, right? That's what is being told in the 17th verse. Jnana nirdhuta kalpasha. Knowledge, and it cleans our misgiving. So if I keep on practicing bhakti for, let's say, 3-4 decades, and if there is no change in me, there's no benefit of doing bhakti. So bhakti has to be transformational. But it starts from intelligence and mind, fixing our intelligence and mind. Right? That's the important part. Once we do that, then the concept of Tatparayana, it evolves. So that how the making Krishna our goal, that whole process evolves. Right? So when I'm not sure if you all remember that, but when we started the Nectar of Instruction, I talked about sadhya and sadhana. So sadhya means the goal, right? So sadhya is goal. So Krishna is sadhya, sadhana is the bhakti that we are doing. But when we begin everything, our sadhya is still wanting something from this material world. Our sadhya is not Krishna. So they're the temporary things are sadhya. Then after some time they become the temporary. So I'm partially in temporary, partially in eternal, that I want something in the spiritual world also, but also something spiritual. In the material world, but also in the spiritual world. But then after that, it becomes only eternal, right? That I want eternal, that I want to connect in the spiritual world. But then still, the concept of Bhagavan is not yet fully manifest, right? I'm looking for peace, right? So peace comes in. So that's more like a Brahman Paramatma platform. But then I don't want peace, I want Bhagavan. That is why a pure devotees who are pure devotees, if you see somebody, they go under a lot of pain. They do so many services. They go under through a lot of pain. And sometimes they do things that might seem contradictory to bhakti. But they're not worried because they don't want Shanti. They don't want glamour or fame. They just want to connect with Krishna completely. So they do many things which might not look like as if they are Tatparayana. So they don't want Shanti anymore. They are beyond that. Similarly, sadhana, when we do sadhana, our sadhana also goes through an evolution. Okay. That evolution means that earlier we are completely in karma. There is no concept of religiosity. Then we come to karma kanda. There is some dharma, artha, kama, moksha kind of a concept. Then we come to karma yoga, where we have spiritual goals, but then I still have desires, material world. Then there's more focus on the eternal. Then comes knowledge, jnana. So that's the Brahman concept, and dhyana. So both of them have an evolution. So the Tatparayana concept is more to elaborate upon that. The Tatparayana doesn't happen overnight. So don't be frustrated or don't be demoralized if things don't seem to be improving drastically in your life after even investing significantly in bhakti. It takes time. It takes time. So that evolution happens. So that's the Tatparayana concept. Okay, so coming to the 18th verse.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you just mentioned about this Tatparayana, right? And you said sometimes the pure devotee, like not only showing that Tatparayana. So what exactly, can you just give an example where it reflects?
Yes, for example, book distribution, right? I've seen these elevated pure devotees going to all these sorts of filthy places to distribute. I'll give you an example. I was in India, so we were in Jagannath Puri. So in Jagannath Puri, we stopped at a bus station. Like in India, we have bus stations, right? So buses come from all over. And it was so filthy, you cannot imagine. It was stinking all over. But still, there were devotees who were doing book distribution there. So somebody would say, oh no, and then sometimes people go into liquor shops to distribute books. Right? Then, for example, Prabhupada was a sannyasi. So sannyasi has a role according to the Varna Ashrama system. But Prabhupada was conducting marriages of his disciples. Okay? Prabhupada was literally dealing with so much money, billions and billions of dollars. So even though it seemed like, oh, sannyasi should not deal with money, he should not deal in these ritualistic activities like marriage and all that, Prabhupada was not worried about it. So even though it seemed as if that he's a Tatparayana, he's already fully in Krishna consciousness, but his activities didn't seem like that. Right? Those are some examples that come to my mind. And even when Krishna himself says in the 18th chapter, when we read, he'll say that don't disclose this knowledge to the people who are envious. But here you see, we all give this knowledge to everybody we meet. So even though a Tatparayana is being given these restrictions, okay, don't give it to us, all that, but still we go out and we do it. So which might seem contradictory, right? I don't know what but then ISKCON doesn't have a great people have this misconception about ISKCON, that ISKCON is all about making money, and my family members think that ISKCON is all about collecting money and then they send it to US. But that's not the case. ISKCON is full of these self-realized souls who are trying to execute the order of Krishna, but then they don't seem that way. So all these things is what I meant.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Makes sense.
So that is why we also, as I think that's what, when we read the Nectar of Instruction, there was a verse in the Nectar, that was 5th verse, right? Drishteshtu bhavajaniter vapushashtatose na prakritattvamiha bhakti janasya pashre gangam bhasham na khalo tena budbuddha pankhe brahmadaratmam apagachyati nira dharme. What it was saying is that you might see a devotee with defects, but you should never look at the bodily defects in a devotee, because the devotee, even though outwardly he or she might seem that, oh no, he doesn't look like a devotee, but then down deep, because he's a pure soul, externally he doesn't look like he's Tatparayana, but internally he's self-realized, and you should have that intellectual acumen to distinguish and understand that. Okay, so let's go to the verse number 18. This is one of the Prabhupada's favorite verses. He used to quote it so often. Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmani Gavi Hastini Sunichaiva Supakecha Pandita Samadarshina. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, cow, an elephant, dog, and a dog eater. Now, so now we're entering the realm of equal vision. This is another section that comes up in this chapter. This is the next section. So people who follow the verse that we just read, right? They fix their mind, intelligence, nishtha, and parayana. They get equal vision, right? And so once Prabhupada was giving a class in Germany or Amsterdam probably, And he was mentioning these 4 categories: Brahmana, Shudra, Vaishya, and all that. And one rough young guy, he stood up and said, he was very boastful. He's saying, "Oh, you must." He thought that Prabhupada will say that he's in the topmost class, and he asked Prabhupada, "Oh, which class are you in?" So Prabhupada just humbly bowed his head and he said, "I'm 5th class. I'm servant of all." So that's the quality of a Brahmana. That he's Vidya Vinaya. So Vidya and Vinaya are the qualities of a Brahmana. And I think probably we discussed this also last time, but that we should see bodily differences, but we should see the unity also, right? There's a mention of different animals here: cow, an elephant, a dog. So in animals, so the way Krishna has established this verse is that the cow represents the mode of goodness, elephant the mode of passion, dogs the mode of ignorance, right? So what this, another way of looking at it is that this is equal vision, that he sees, a pure devotee sees everybody, Krishna sitting in their hearts, but then externally he sees differences, right? So I think I mentioned this in the last class, the Vyavarika and Paramarthika. There are 2 ways in which we execute our lives, right? That Vyavarika means ordinary dealings, how we act with people, and Paramarthika means that down deep we know what their true nature is. So that's the, and I think now that I think about it, it seems like we already discussed this verse, right? So Samadarshina is on it's a much high level, and it's hard to understand. That is why we always consider ourselves as just followers. We just follow pure devotees, not necessarily trying to doubt why are you doing this and why is that being done, because doubts are good, but then we also have to understand that these self-realized souls know what they're doing. They have this equal vision. So we just follow. We're just followers. We are not looking for followers. We are just followers ourselves. So with the Vinaya Sampane, so he knows that it depends what the person is dealing with. Accordingly, he knows how to execute. So, but then down deep, he knows that everybody has Krishna in their heart. Right? So this concept of Samadarshana has to be properly understood. It's not easy to understand it. And it's very much something that Krishna gives us. Right? It comes through such descending grace coming from Krishna. So that kind of understanding, it comes through. There is some amount of our execution also, for sure. We also make some conscious choice, but it's also Krishna's. It's a matter of divine grace also. Because when we are sick, let's say, taking medicines is in our hands, but then regaining our health is not in our hands, nor in the doctor's hand. So similarly, when we are understanding this concept of Samadarshina, we can do some part of it, but then it's the full understanding will be in Krishna's hands. Okay. So Prabhupada starts by saying a Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or caste. The similarity in the quality of the soul and super soul, however, does not make them equal in quantity. For the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. Okay. So qualitatively similar, but quantitatively not similar. Okay, so 19th verse. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman. And thus they are already situated in Brahman. Okay. So the theme of equal vision is going on. Brahman realization is also a part of Krishna consciousness. Right? So there's a Brahman. They're flawless like Brahman, and they are situated in Brahman. Okay. So we talked about it. The three levels: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Okay. So Brahman is also a part of Krishna consciousness, though it's not the complete part. Okay. So it means to, so we understand that the word Brahman comes in so many, Brahmacharya, Brahmana, Brahminical culture. So that word is used so often. So understanding what the concept Brahman is also a part of Krishna consciousness. So so this is an outcome of that equal vision concept that was discussed in the earlier verse. Those whose minds established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They're flawless like Brahman, and they are already situated in the Brahman. So Prabhupada is saying the Lord is flawless because he's without attraction or hatred. So flawless means, Prabhupada is giving the definition of flawless, because flawless is somebody who is without attraction or hatred. So that's the essence of coming from here, from this verse. Let's see if Prabhupada has anything. Okay. So such persons are to be considered already liberated, and their symptoms are described below. So the next, they will be described the symptoms. So 22 last verse now, they're all symptoms. There'll be all symptoms of that kind of a person. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the signs of God, is already situated in transcendence. Brahma with Brahmani sthita. Brahma with Brahmani sthita, right? So Krishna is telling here now that how do you come to the level of that Brahman platform that Krishna was in the earlier verse he was telling? It's by practicing this sadhana. And the person becomes, upon achieving, he becomes sthira buddhi. Sthira buddhi means he or she doesn't get, when he gets something pleasant or something unpleasant, that doesn't disturb that person. Whenever there are these sports matches, there's one team that's rejoicing and the other team is lamenting. This is because of duality, right? So what is required for this? That's na praharshe priyam prapte na udvijit prapte chatram. Yes. So yes. So when people, it's always this duality always exists in our life. 24/7, we see this duality happening all the time. Sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm happy. But the essence lies in the fact that we just take everything that is coming to us as Krishna's mercy. Okay. Right. So when we see that the material nature is working, whatever is happening to me, I see it as an opportunity for purification coming from the Lord, and that kind of a person becomes fit for liberation. Right? That 10th canto, the famous verse 10:14:8, Tatyanukampam thu samikshamano. That verse, Lord Brahma says that when people just tolerate whatever is happening to them, whatever is coming their way, at the same time just doing their sadhana to the best of their capacity, they become eligible to enter the kingdom of God. So that's the quality of a self-realized person. They understand that what this material nature is. They know that whatever is coming to them, it looks like misery, but it's Krishna's mercy coming to help them, coming to purify them. And then they're already situated in transcendence, and they're ready to go back home, back to God. 21. Okay. 21. Yes. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. So how can we be equipoised? So the word here is used as asakt atma. Okay, asakt atma is being used, which is the word asakt atma, one who is not attached. So the word asakta, it means not attached, detached, and the word asakta is attached. Okay. So where does happiness come from for a person who is not attached, who's asakta? It's atma, so coming from the self, right? So that's coming from the self. Now this verse has four progressions in there. Okay. So what's the, let's see. So the first thing is that he's detached from material sense pleasure. So this is the first step. Okay. There are 4 steps in this verse. First step is the person is not attached to material sense pleasure, detached from any external stimuli. Then what does the person do? So first is detachment from the external world. But as we have read, dutiful detachment doesn't help unless you're not devotional. So there has to be some detachment from the external world, but then also has to be attachment to Krishna. So the first step comes is detachment from the material sense pleasure. Then the person does is enjoys the pleasure within. That's the second step. So what does a person who is detached himself or herself from external stimuli do? Is they seek happiness within. Okay. Then the third step, what do they do? After seeking pleasure, he concentrates on the Supreme. Okay. And then what does that happen then? The person enjoys unlimited happiness after that. Okay. So if you understand this, the verse that's explaining to us is that we have detached ourselves from external stimuli. We are having pleasure within. But then that pleasure also will not give us complete satisfaction, because we have to take it to the next level, whereas concentrate on the Supreme. Then we get that unlimited happiness. Right? To the extent we are identifying with this body, we are not spiritual. All this happens gradually. I've been telling, we talked about that. There was that verse, right? From Samhita, 59th verse of the 5th chapter. We read that, right? Parmane tat sadacare yad abhyase nirantar. Bodhyam atmanatmanam bhaktim api uttamam labhet. So that happens gradually. So this is the test of our spiritual growth, right? So first comes hearing, then inner happiness grows, right? So even when hearing, when we are still seeking external happiness, we know that is not a great thing. Right? So there is a verse that Prabhupada quotes in here. Yes, this is an important verse. This is by Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya was the guru of Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya, who brought Abhīṣṭa-dohaṁ into this world, comes after Shankaracharya. So yes, so that's who Yamunacharya is. It's a very interesting verse. So he's saying, since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. Okay. When I read this verse for the first time, it kind of gave me a sense of, I was just, my anxiety was eased a bit. Because Yamunacharya is a self-realized soul you're talking about. So he's having all these desires in his heart too, all these negative, these material desires in his heart. So I was just started thinking, okay, then even if self-realized souls have material desires, and I am also having material desires, how does it differentiate? So those self-realized souls, they know how to ignore that desire. And as he's saying, I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. So a self-realized soul also has a similar thoughts, but then he knows how to push them away, right? How to procrastinate when it comes to it. It's a good procrastination, that you're procrastinating material sense gratification. So that's an important verse of which Prabhupada is giving here, right? And so there's a story in Ramayana, when Mother Sita was abducted. When Mother Sita was abducted, she was going on that airplane with Ravan, and she was dropping her ornaments all the way so that people could figure out which path she went on. And many of Lord Ram's army people, they bought those ornaments to him, and they showed him, okay, this is her anklet, a bracelet, or a necklace, or whatever it may be. So there's a very interesting episode that happens that, Lord Ram, he shows that jewels to Lakshmana. And he asked them, do you think they belong to Sita? Right? So now you would think that Lakshman has been there, he's been around for 14 years. He was serving Mother Sita and Lord Ram all the time. So he would know, right? He was serving Mother. But then what does he say? He says, Naham janami keyure, Naham janami kundale. He says that, Naham janami keyure, kundale, keyure and kundale. Right? So keyure is earrings and kundale is, kundal is earrings. I forgot which one is it, but so Naham, so I think one of them, so bracelets and necklace. So he says, Naham janami keyure, Naham janami kundale, nupure tu abhijanami. That I know her anklets, what Mother Sita used to wear on her feet. So he said, I know those. I can identify those, but I cannot identify what she was wearing on her neck or on her ears or on her hands. So that's the kind of a, so that's the kind of a self-control pure devotees have. He didn't raise his eyes to look at Mother Sita's face ever in 14 years. Right? And the reason I'm bringing all this is because the Prabhupada is talking about sex desires here, because this world is called Maithunya Agara. Maithunya Agara. So it says Maithunya Agara means like it's shackles of sex life. They're invisible shackles of sex life. We are put in the jail that we don't want to give up. Right? So we have to initially understand this intellectually. Over a period of time, it will kind of go into our subconscious, and we will be able to control these material tendencies that come to us. But that's the example that I gave of Lakshmana was that I just wanted to highlight that how these self-realized souls have so much control over them, and that comes out of the practice of devotion. Right? Lakshmana's devotion to Lord Ram gave him, he attained that level. Prabhupada was once in Surat, and his devotees were seeing that how everybody was paying obeisances to Prabhupada. Right? Everybody, Prabhupada was just walking, and there were people just falling down right and left. As disciples were amazed. And they were thinking, why are people giving so much respect to Prabhupada? And Prabhupada understood what his disciples were thinking. And he said that, I don't have sex desire. That is why they all are giving me so much respect. A few minutes later, he stopped again and said, I don't have time for sex desire. So once again, establishing the fact that it's not that these great personalities don't ever get such desires. What makes them great is that they don't respond to such desires. Right? This verse by Yamunacharya established that even such people had these thoughts. So, and frankly, Krishna is not against sex. He himself says, he'll come in the 7 chapters that, dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bhartashava. That sex, which is according to religious principles, I am that. Kamo asmi bhartashava. That I am that kama, I am that lust, which is according to the religious principle. So, I think I've spoken enough about this topic. But yes, as I was saying, 4 steps: detaching from external, enjoying pleasure within, concentrating on the Supreme, and then enjoying unlimited happiness. 4-step process being given by Krishna in verse number 21, the 5th chapter. Prabhupada makes a very clear statement: spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. They don't go well together. Okay. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yoneya evate adi antavanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. This is a very good verse. This chapter, some of these verses are just amazing. An intelligent person does not take part in the source of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Samsparshaja bhoga. enjoyment produced by contact of the senses with sense objects. Bhoga. So bhoga means to enjoy, right? So it's the connection of sense and sense objects. But that has a beginning and an end. Which is very much like Prahlad Maharaj saying, Puna punas charvita charvananam, that we are chewing the chewed all the time. There's no juice in it, but we keep just chewing it all the time. Yeah. So these sense pleasures, if you look at it in an analogy, these sense pleasures are like sandwiches. So the upper loaf of the bread is hankering, the lower loaf is lamentation, and in the middle there's little pleasure. And the word, Krishna very smartly uses the word yonaya. So the word yonaya is Prabhupada translated. He's saying it's source of, but as we know that yonaya, right? Yoni means womb. Womb. So what Krishna is saying is this sense pleasure is pregnant with misery. It's full of misery. He's using it in a conceptual way, saying that like a yoni, like a child in the womb, when the mother is pregnant. So it's the sense pleasures are full of that kind of misery. And when in any case, when there's a pregnancy, delivery of the misery will be there. Right? So lamentation and hankering is bound to happen when we are when we do samsparsha jabho. Sense and sense objects combined, we are surely going to have lamentation and hankering. Surely going to come there. Okay. So one thing that I've been, I've heard and also trying to realize is that it's not the pleasure that I'm interested in. In a majority of the time, it's just the thought of the pleasure that gives me enjoyment, that makes me excited about it. But when I actually go to execute that thought process, when I'm physically doing it, it doesn't give me much pleasure, because the concept of lamentation and hankering come in, effort comes in, you put in a lot of effort. So it's just the thought that's enjoyable. The activity itself is not even enjoyable. And so Krishna says it's adi antavanta. It has a beginning and an end. An intelligent person doesn't delight in it. Na teshu ramate buddha. Right? If you all must have noticed this. If we do little sense gratification, our mind starts to grumble. I didn't get enough. I need more. I need more. So there is hankering. Right? Let's say, you wanted to marry somebody and you couldn't marry that person, and now you have a substandard spouse or something. Not that you, but general. It's a statement. I'm not saying you have, but then you have a hankering in your heart, and then when we do more, our body troubles. So there is lamentation, overeating. Simple example of that, right? And so an intelligent person understands this and doesn't want to get it. So Prabhupada is saying, what is Prabhupada saying? Oh, Prabhupada is quoting two verses, one from Padma Purana and the other from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.1. So it's so if you want to take and extract the essence out here, is that it's the pleasure is temporary, okay? It's illusory, and it's miserable. So that's the three things that are coming out of here. Okay? It's temporary. Krishna is saying it's beginning and an end, and it's illusory. Right? Because even though the person thinks that there is a source of happiness or pleasure, but it's actually a source of misery. It's illusory, and it gives misery to us. Okay, so it's a source of misery, as Krishna is saying, and it's so that's it. So the acronym is time. So temporary, illusory, miserable enjoyment. Right? Okay. So Prabhupada saying in the what he says, the more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. The more deeper our addiction becomes, the more deeper we get entrapped in it, and the more miserable we become. So let's just look at these two verses that Prabhupada is quoting here. Ramante yogino nante. Right? Well, before that, let's look at this. Yes, Ramante. So Ramante means Rama, yogino nante. So when we connect with the reservoir, we draw tremendous pleasure out of that. Till then, as I was mentioning, till then, I just take it as my karma coming to me as Lord Mercy, and to keep me in an alert state of consciousness that this world is not my place, not a place for me to be in. And all the while expecting Lord's mercy will come. And even though right now I'm plowed over by miseries, by material desires, but then, so a person who's fixed in Lord Rama, Ramante, Yogino Anante. Anante means all the time, right? So Param Brahma Abhidhiyate. Brahma Abhidhiyate. So he derives unlimited pleasure from Brahma, the unlimited truth, from Param Brahma, from Krishna. So, so that's the situation. And then this next verse is a very interesting one. If you all are interested in memorizing verses, this is a very good verse to memorize, because this gives us a full what to do and what not to do in one verse. This is I'm trying to remember who's speaking this. Okay, I can't remember the name. So Nayam Deho Deya Bhajam Nirloke Kastan Kaman Arhate Vid Bhujamye Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam Shuddhe Yasmad Brahma Sokhyam Tuanantam. So what is being said in this verse is that Nayam Deho Deya Bhajan Nirloke. So Deha Bhajam Nirloke. When we have got this human form, okay, this body is not for sense gratification. Deha bhajam nirloke. In this world, this is not meant for sense pleasure, right? Because, and he's saying in the next word, arhate vid bhujam ye. Vid bhujam means 2 liters, pigs, basically. So the speaker is saying that even 2 liters are enjoying. The way if you just use this body for sense gratification, even 2 liters are enjoying it the same. They also delight in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, tapo divyam putraka. Divyam means transcendental. Tapo means austerities. So, tapo divyam putraka. So, perform transcendental austerities. Then what will happen? Sattvam. It's a sattvam shuddhayet. Sattvam shuddhayet. And our consciousness will purify. So, what will happen after that? You'll get tasmad, yasmad, brahma sokhyam tuananta. You'll get the unlimited pleasures. Anantam. There is no end to it. There is sokhyam that we'll get, the happiness we will get. Okay? But then somebody can ask you that why should I do austerities? Right? The speaker is saying, tapo divyam putragayena sattvam shuddhai. The tapo divyam. So austerity is because in the transitionary stage that we all are in, right, when we are moving away from material life to spiritual pleasures and coming to spiritual, there is a struggle. This is a product, this is a period of treatment, right? I'm sick, I have a disease, I started taking the medicine, but I'm still not seeing any changes. I'm not seeing any improvement in myself. So that's a transitionary state. Over time, I'll start seeing improvement in myself, and there will be a time when I'll be perfectly cured, I'll be back on my feet again. But till that time, the transitionary phase is there. We have to do transcendental austerities. We have to do, in simple terms, devotional service. Right? Devotional service, all the things that we do are including, hearing, chanting. All that comes under devotional service. So it's important to do services. Yeah. That's important. But it also has to be Sattvam Shuddhai. So yes, the purified consciousness. So when we undergo penances, those penances have to be executed. I'm just trying to think of words how to put. It has to be executed in a very intelligent way. Okay. Yes, it's fine. We just keep doing work. That's fine. It's okay. But we should also take a time to understand and realize Krishna sitting within our heart also. It should not always be an external focus that, okay, I'll just keep doing services and then yes, we will be purified, not saying no, but it will be expedited if we also take some time out and sit down and realize for ourselves what is, realize Krishna sitting in our heart. That's also just another aspect of it. So those are the two that Prabhupada is giving, two verses he's quoting there. Verse 23. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, is well situated and is happy in this world. So now Arjuna can technically ask this question that, okay, I know desires cause misery, but what do I do with these desires? What Krishna is telling him, Shaknoti, asking to tolerate. Okay? Shodham, sorry, the word Shodham is means tolerate, but Shaknoti and Shodham. Right? Tolerate what? Kama, Krodho, Bhavam, Vegam. Right? Kama, Krodha, we remember the Vegas, right? The 6 Vegas. The first verse of Nectar of Instruction. Somebody remembers what the 6 Vegas are?
Yes, Prabhupada.
Oh, yes, tell me, please.
I think so. Vacho Vegam, Manasa, Krodha Vegam, Udari Prastu Vegam.
Yes,
Right?
very good. Vacho Vegam, Manasa, Krodh Vegam, Jibba Vegam, Udaro, Pastami. Yes, 6. Very good. Nice, that's good. You're memorizing verses? That's good. Verses are good to memorize because they always, when we memorize verses, Prabhupada used to say that in a worst case scenario, if any of my disciples falls into an animal, goes downhill for some reason, he can remember these verses and they will show up at the right time. Just like for Gajendra, it happened. So when we memorize verses, it helps us at multiple levels. Personally, for me, it helps me at multiple levels. Our mind remains controlled, and then we can always remember these verses, which are like Sanskrit and coming from a transcendental platform. They have a very different effect on us, or a very more concentrated effect on us when we know the verse, because we can actually feel that the potency there. So good. Okay. So those 6 ones. So what is Krishna asking? That till you reach that state, you just tolerate. Okay, tolerate. And we have come across this toleration at so many places. And Krishna has talked about it in so many places, toleration. In the 2nd chapter, right? Was it the 2nd chapter? Second, Dehapatta, no, not that one. Is that 2nd chapter, 215. 215. 215. Yes, 215. No, 215. I'm trying to look for it. Where's that verse? Oh, 214. Yes. That was one of the verses. Matra sparshat krupanteya sittoshna sukha dukkada agama paina nityas tam titishava bharata. So Krishna is saying that all these things happen, summer, winters, happiness, distress. So you just tolerate them. So Krishna talks about toleration at many places. Actually, this whole, I think, 14, 15, 16, 3 verses in the 2nd chapter come. And we also read a bit about it in the 3rd chapter, toleration. So toleration comes all over the place. So Krishna is again repeating the same message: tolerate, tolerate. So it's a very important principle of Bhagavad Gita, the concept of toleration. So tolerance is very much like a wall. It serves as a wall between the temptation and between the action, the transgression, right? Okay. Everybody will get temptations, all get them. We just heard Yamunacharya speaking. But transgression only happens when we act on that temptation. Right? So when we go on the road, you must have seen, right? They make that road, I don't know what you call it, but groovy. So if you by chance you get off the road, suddenly your car starts to wobble and it makes a weird sound, and if you're sleeping, you can wake up. So there's a purpose there, okay, so that we don't go off track. So similarly, when we get temptations, we also should have some things that can help us come back to track when we're going off track. And There are many ways of doing it. Surely, if you have a good association, you have the right people around you, they can help you with it. And as one of my mentors used to say that, says that we should collect mentors. Yeah. So always collect mentors. Have many mentors around you who can always guide you. So I've taken up on that suggestion. I have mentors for professional life, personal life, spiritual life. So we just should have mentors. So that because we are very prone to making these transgressions, we are not perfect beings. All this kama, krodha, bhavam, vegam, all these kind of things keep coming to me. So those the rubble, the groovy side of the road helps me remind that I'm making a transgression and I should come back on track. And that's what actually steadiness means. Steadiness doesn't mean that you are at the same position the whole time. Steadiness means that you know how to pull yourself back to the main position. Just like an aircraft, the pilot, it seems like a very simple job, right? You put autopilot and you can go to sleep. No, the plane is given by those the pressure of wind and then whatever's going on up there. The aircraft keep moving off the track. The pilot keeps bringing it back on track again and again and again. That's how we steadily move on our path. So that's what steadiness means. So never think that if you are not able to control your senses, you are not worthy enough of Krishna's mercy. Always remember that Krishna's mercy is not dependent on where you stand in your bhakti process. So as long as we are sincere, Krishna's mercy will always be coming. So it's not a sign of giving up if we have temptations. Just like firefighters, right? They're always fighting fires, but that doesn't mean that the fires in the city are getting any smaller. Right? So not to worry why these fires are coming, right? But just being tackling them intelligently. Desires always die down if we refuse to fulfill them. Sometimes it seems that the desires become stronger, but it's actually not become, like, for example, a tiger. When a tiger gets hungry, the tiger becomes more ferocious. But the trainer would know that the tiger is not becoming ferocious or more dangerous, but the tiger is becoming weaker, even though it's roaring loudly. So always understanding that, right? So it's always like we're in a boxing ring with the mind all the time. But then it can be done. So the work is inwards, not outwards. So we just focusing inwards. Prabhupada is saying in the purport, there are 4 feet talk about this. Okay. It is the duty of the transcendentalist to try strenuously to control desire and anger. So the word Prabhupada that's important for all of us, at least for me, is the try. Okay? I'm trying my best. That's the beauty of bhakti. The material world, only the results give us some benefit once we are able to attain something. But in the spiritual world, just the desire gives us results. If we are desiring sincerely, we are acting sincerely, then for sure Krishna will reciprocate. He'll give us everything. I'll take a pause here and see if any thoughts, any comments. We are at 24. We are at 7:55. So we have some time. We might be able to wrap up this chapter, or might not be. There are only 29 verses here, but let's see how that goes. Anything? No? Okay. Let's move forward. Text 24. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. So he is liberated in the Supreme and attains the Supreme. Right? Till now, we were being told to be dutiful and detached. Now, indirectly, the devotional part is being revealed. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned in the last class that 7th chapter onwards, Krishna becomes very direct about bhakti. But till then, he's going to not be direct about it because he's talking about other kinds of yoga practices. So now what he's saying is that be more contemplative. So he's asking us to be inwardly focused. Okay? So that's the asik. So anta sukha, that gives us anta sukha. So the word is Brahma Nirvana. Brahma Nirvana. Liberation in the Supreme. Okay. So the word Nirvana, many of you must have heard that word. Nirvana. Nirvana means end of material existence, material miseries. So that's called Nirvana. But Brahma Nirvana is simultaneous revival of spiritual existence. It's the next level of it. And Brahma Nirvana comes across so many chapters. You see this verse, the next one, we read, there was a verse in the second chapter, sixth chapter. It's a Brahma Nirvana, it comes in many places. So, but the difference that I just wanted to highlight was the word Nirvana means end of material miseries and material existence. And that's why the Buddhist philosophy is about Nirvana. Okay? That there is nothing, everything finishes. But then Prabhupada has taught us that that's not a philosophy worth pursuing. This voidism. So Brahma Nirvana is simultaneous revival of spiritual existence. So complete culmination or not complete cessation of material miseries, but then simultaneously also revival of my spiritual existence. Then, a liberated person enjoys happiness by factual appearance. Yep. So, what does factual appearance mean? Prabhupada is saying that, furthermore, he explains that factual appearance means that a person can sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within. That's what factual experience means. That we don't need anything external to be happy. So in the earlier verse 23, we heard that verse Shodam, right? Tolerate. So now we are being told on the positive side to relish spiritual pleasure from within. So in verse 22, there was dukkha yoneya evate. So contact with material, contact with sense objects leading to misery. So, but now here we are telling that there's a benefit. So Krishna has told that in the middle 23 verse, tolerate everything. Before that is the negative side, dukkha yoneya. And on the other side is the positive aspect, 24th verse. So it's a very much like a sandwich again. So you can say, think of it as a sandwich. Tolerating in the center. If you don't, there is dukkha yoneya. If you do, there is spiritual pleasure that you can relish. Brahma saukhyam dvanam. Brahma. No, that's from the other verse, but here it is. Brahma nirvana. Brahma nirvana. Okay. So we save ourselves from both the sides. So as I was saying earlier, as a devotee, it's important for us to realize that it's not just work. It's not just the external activities that we are doing the whole time. Okay, I'm fully engaged in service. We also have to work on reviving our internal relationship with Lord as we continue to work. That is why every day we take some time out, not some, no good time out. We chant, we read, because that strengthens us internally. And then we go out into the material world, do our activities. We work for Krishna. We earn money. We go to the temple. We serve, and so on and so forth. But we also take time out to make ourselves stronger with it, right? That's also important. How is that? I'm not remembering many verses. I'm thinking of that. Yeah, okay, I was trying to remember a verse, but no. So yes, so it has to be both ways, internal and external. So this is this verse here, factual experience. Again, the word Brahma Nirvanam comes here again, the 25th verse. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. Right? So now Brahma Nirvanam is attained. So what next? Will I just wallow in that? Right? There was this. So will I just be in that? So there's always this thing, dualities that arise from doubt, engaged within, working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation. So in this material world, it's very contradictory to what this verse is saying. Right? There's always this march towards material enjoyment, a desire to increase our fervor for material enjoyment. There was the story that there was once a maid and a landlady. They both got fever, and then the doctor came and he said that the maid had 104 degree Fahrenheit fever, and the landlady had 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and then the landlady got furious. How does she have more? I should have more. Increase it. So similarly, there's a march in material enjoyment. If we see somebody having something, we also want that. I also want that. So it takes away from this takes us away from our spiritual nature. Right? As devotees, we just need to have enough to perform our duties perfectly. Right? We, as I say, right, we already are somebody. We don't have to be somebody. That's an important thing. That we already are something. So coming back, who we are, that who's that we can attain is that we are the person who has reached that level of consciousness. So he already is free from dualities. He's beyond the dualities. His mind is engaged within, and he's working for the welfare of all living entities. Right. So, and who are free from all sins. Yeah. So this is a very common principle we always see, right? That I need more. There is this. But when a person who is self-realized, he or she has understood that we have this dual existence in the world because we are spiritual beings presently inhabiting a material body, right? So those people have understood that that we are categorically different from this machine that we are in. We all are in a machine. We are in a biomechanical robot. You all see, right? We have a pump in a heart. We have levers and pulleys and joints and whatnot. It's a machine that we have, and we are categorically different from them. So those people who have attained that status, that consciousness, they have fully understood that, and they've also understood that their mind is always playing tricks with us. So like mind is a conveyor belt, which is dishing out garbage the whole time, every time. But then these people have realized that these products that are coming out of this conveyor belt of my mind, I don't have to pick up all of them. So that's the consciousness that the person has, that he or she is able to distinguish between myself and the products that are being produced by the mind. And then, so dualities, right? The dualities are arising from doubts, as they say. Right? That there's so much doubts that we are born with. Ichha, dvesha, so there's, ichha and dvesha, that's liking and dislike. There's so many other things that the dualities that arise doubts in my mind all the time. So those doubts don't let me progress on my bhakti path. So, another important thing coming here is Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. That is being talked about it. That's Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. That thinking about the welfare of others. And this is a very interesting thing that many a time people have this misconception that bhakti and social service are two separate. Right? So that's not the way it is. Let me take a step back before I even go into that. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata, working for the welfare of others. So the word Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata, they become rishis, right? So the word rishi means a self-realized soul who has this transcendental vision, and he can see that everybody is suffering. Right? And the word rishi, the word Russia actually comes from this rishi, the word rishi, the root word rishi. That is why people in Russia are very devotees. When Krishna consciousness is there, a lot of them become devotees. Right? That's also. But then the important thing to understand is that even an expert surgeon has to take some time out. That can everybody hear me clearly? I'm being told that my internet connection is not stable.
Yes, it is.
Yes, clear.
Okay. So yes, so I was saying that the expert surgeon, even though the surgeon is expert, he or she has to keep himself educated. I don't get exhausted. So we have to take care of ourselves also. We sometimes become so passionate about others that we forget that we have to fortify ourselves also. We'll not be able to help others take the medicine unless we have taken it, we have seen the effect ourselves. So the concept of Sarvabhuta Hite Rata has multiple layers to it. Just wanted to bring that out here. And Prabhupada talks in the purport about it. He says that the suffering of humanity are due to forgetfulness of Krishna. A person engaged only in ministering to the physical welfare of human society cannot factually help anyone. So as I was saying, is that many times people say this, right? That, oh, I always only want to help others. But it's all this going to the temple, waste of money, time. So people unnecessarily, they remove the social service part from devotional service. But they both have an overlap. Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to say that Vaishnavas should make arrangements for medicine, food, clothing for poor people. It's not against the principle of bhakti to take care of bodily needs of other people. Right? What is against is that giving bodily needs higher or only importance. Okay? That's why Prabhupada is clearly saying here that engaged only in ministering to the physical welfare of human society. And being engaged in welfare of human society is not bad at all, but only it becomes bad. Right? So when we give the bodily needs a higher or only importance, that is the problem. There's this very cliche that people use in India, Manav Seva is he Madhav Seva. So Manav Seva means serving humanity. Madhav Seva is serving Krishna. So they equate. Well, when I'm serving humanity, I'm serving Krishna. But that is wrong. Right? So we don't necessarily, obviously we don't give up our social circle to come to devotional service and vice versa. Okay, and neither should we avoid charity in name of bhakti. Charity is not opposed to bhakti. It is only opposed when charity is used to replace bhakti. Prabhupada established the Food for Life program. Right? Feed the poor people. So Prabhupada very intelligently, he integrated social service with devotional service. Right? Some people don't give charity for the temple. They say, oh, no, I will give charity for food relief. That's fine. There's some Agyat Sukriti happening there. And then later on, they develop appreciation for Krishna and devotees. So Krishna in 12th chapter, when we come, he gives a ladder, he gives a progression, starting from selflessness to all the way to Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is encouraging everyone here. In this verse, where is it? So it's in a plural, okay? Those who are always busy. So it's all about plurality. So what Krishna is doing here is that he's encouraging everyone, right? So, yes, obviously, according to some people, Supreme is Brahman or Paramatma. They might have not found the absolute yet, but they don't have doubts about personal realization, right? They have truth. So about the personal, they have truth. So Krishna is even encouraging those people. So that, okay, that's fine. That you have come beyond duality. You have you're working for the welfare of others. That's okay. You will also achieve liberation. So wherever that person is, Krishna is mercifully trying to incorporate everybody into the process of that. I just highlighted this word tabernacle. Tabernacle means a moving temple. Tabernacle is a moving temple. So what Prabhupada is saying is that when a man is fully conscious of the relationship with Krishna, he's actually a liberated soul, although he may be in the material tabernacle. What a poetic language Prabhupada had. Material tabernacle. We all are material tabernacle. Moving. And the biggest goal in our life is to bring Krishna and have him seated in that temple. That I already have. Okay. 26. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Yes. So now in this verse, we'll see it's coming as Kama Krodha. Kama Krodha Vimuktana. And so those are free from anger and material desires. So now where is this Kama and Krodha coming from suddenly? We say, oh, we have not even talked about it. Where is it coming from? That's coming from the 2nd and 3rd chapter. Okay. Krishna talked about Kama and Krodha in those chapters, and now he's just clubbing it. So coupling of this Kama and Krodha is significant. So some people are able to control Kama, but then they fall down because of Krodha. What was that guy? Who was he? Vishwamitra, right? Vishwamitra, yes. So Vishwamitra got captivated by Menaka. So he fell for that Kama. But then when Rambha came, he got angry and he lost his power. Right? So Krodha is also called Kamanuja. So he's the younger brother of Kama. So if you are free from Kama and not Krodha, it means we are free from Kama but not Krodha means that we have been able to detach ourselves but not attach ourselves to Krishna. Right? So we talked about dutiful, detached, and then being devotional. So when people who have controlled Kama are still on the detached platform. But if we don't come to the devotional platform, we'll always have Krodha in us because we'll be frustrated that, oh, I've done so much, but still I've not attained any much. We have not redirected ourselves to the spiritual level. Right? So then just what happens is that when we have not focused on Krishna, then our desire will automatically fall back on some material object. Right? Just like alcoholics are asked to, they're asked to move to something as a substitute therapy, as to like chocolates or something. So they also shift desire from one material object to another. That's the same problem. Kama has been controlled, but because the Krodha has not been, if we're not free from Krodha, Kama will take us, okay, we have controlled one aspect, we'll jump on the other aspect. So there'll always be the substitute therapy system will keep going. But in spiritual level, we are reverting back to our original. So now Krishna is very intelligently building us towards Bhakti Yoga. 6 chapters, or 7 chapters will be Bhakti Yoga. So he's just discussing some general principles about Bhakti, spiritual principles, right? So the whole focus he's pointing out is that entanglement in material world is the problem. So he's teaching us to be detached till now, okay? But then later on, he'll come to devotional aspect, okay? So,
Prabhu,
yes, please.
I had a question, Prabhu. So, Parshuram, who was the avatar of Krishna, he was always in the mode of anger, right? I know he had a purpose to annihilate the Kshatris. I understand that, but his mode was always he was angry, means anger and Parshuram used to go together hand in hand. And then Krishna says, this is one of the paths that would not lead you to liberation if you are into mode of anger, right? So means how do we connect both the things?
Yeah, so see, any emotion we have, so let's look at from this one. In the 15th chapter, when we come, Krishna will tell us that Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakam Ashwatham Prahuravvyayam. The first verse Krishna will say, Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakam. That this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Urdhva Moolam, it's an inverted tree, like you see a reflection in water. Whatever emotions or emotions we have in this material world have a counterpart in the spiritual world. It's coming to anger now. It's not that anger is bad in a sense. Krishna is not giving a generic statement that anger in any form is bad. Anger can be used spiritually also and materially also. Hanuman, out of anger, he burnt the entire Lanka. That's spiritual anger. It's not material anger. It's not bad. It's not hurting his spiritual progress in any way. Prabhupada would get very angry. Also, I was listening to Prabhupada this morning. Prabhupada was talking to a Buddhist, and the Buddhist just kept on saying, God is light, God is light. And he was saying, I don't know who is God, but I know God is light. And Prabhupada got so frustrated, he said, you're wasting my time, get lost. He didn't say get lost, but he said, please leave, you're wasting my time. Prabhupada got angry with him. But that's more like a transcendental, right? Prabhupada has such an important mission and there are people wasting his time. So he's doing it. That's not considered as a material anger. Sometimes Prabhupada will get very angry on his disciples. But that's all material anger. So we don't let, when it's spiritual level, we don't let anger control us. We control anger. We use it in the proper place. So to answer your question is that anger can have multiple forms, spiritual as well as material. The anger that is being talked about here is material. So when you give the example of Parshuram, he came with a specific purpose, as you told. And for that, to come into that mode, he needed anger. Right? If you are not angry, you will not be able to attack anybody, right? So you have to come to that level of passion enough that you are ready to kill somebody, and that will only come when you have anger brewing in your heart. So it's a spiritual aspect, even though the outcome looks same. Was that helpful, Nazi?
And Prabhuji, like again, I'm remembering, sorry, Durvasa Rishi, he always used to get angry. Means it was like he get angry and then he could give you shrap, right? He would curse you. So how do we relate when these liberated souls, spiritual souls are getting angry all the time and scaring the people around them like big Rishi? So means how do we relate when they can get angry? And I think so Durvasa Rishi anger was not always spiritual anger, right? Because he used to get angry on small things and he used to just give you, curse you.
His anger was never spiritual. So there are so many there's so many situations when we read. It comes in the 9th canto. I think it's the 9th canto, which is the 6th chapter. So where Durvasa Muni, when he tries to attack Amrish Maharaj,
yes,
he takes a hair out and he creates a demon there.
Yes.
Right? And he tells the demon, kill Amrish. And immediately what happens? Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra comes. Right? And the whole Sudarshan Chakra automatically immediately kills the what do you call them? The demon. But then for Durvasa Muni just keeps running after him.
Yes.
Keeps running after him. Right? And then it goes all the way to Brahmalok. Sorry, not to Vishnu. It goes to Vishnu. Right? And then there he goes to Vishnu, and there he's begging to Vishnu that it's your chakra. Why don't you please ask him to step back? And there Vishnu says to him, Aham Bhakta Paradhino, he aswatantra iva dvija. That Aham Bhakta Paradhino, that I am subservient to my own devotees. He aswatantra iva dvija, that I am not independent. So just imagine the Durvasa kind of a personality. He's a self-realized soul, as you know, but still he's on a Jnana platform. He's not on a Bhakti platform. And that's a big difference there. I can shove all the books in my head, but if that does not kind of filter down Bhakti into my heart and converts to Bhakti in my heart, all that is useless. So yes, that Jnana platform gives you a lot of strength, gives you power, but then still you are never close to a Bhakti platform. Maharaj Amrish, a simple king, he just stood with his hands folded in front of Durvasa Muni, whatever you want to do, sir. But that was so much powerful than Durvasa Muni. So when you see such angers, they are still coming from a material platform. They are not completely a Bhakti platform. People in this Jnana platform, they become proud of their knowledge and whatever mystic powers they have got.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome. So 26. You have 26, 27, 28. Let's see if we can wrap up this chapter. Otherwise, we'll do it towards the end. The last verse is an important one. We might do it the next time, but it's an important part. Okay, so we talked about Kama and Krodha. Okay, when we delight in Krishna consciousness, the desires go into the background. That's it, right? So Prabhupada gives a very good example in here, which I wanted to bring out and probably discuss that. This verse. Oh yes, this is an important part here. So the Prabhupada is saying that the fish brings up its offspring simply by looking at them, The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs of the tortoise laid. So he's giving a couple of analogies. And then he's saying, similarly, the devotees in Krishna consciousness, although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to that abode simply by thinking of him constantly and by engagement in Krishna consciousness. I just want to bring this section out and tell you that Prabhupada is giving an example. The fish brings out its offspring by simply looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. And now this can be a kind of a point of contention here, because somebody can say, oh, science does not support this. Right? We know that there's so what I wanted to just bring out is that many times when we read Prabhupada's translations, purports, we might see some things that are contradictory. And that contradiction can leave a doubt in our heart. So I just want to bring this out here so that we can talk about it and clarify this. So one thing to understand is that whenever such examples come, we focus not on the factuality of these specific examples, but on the principle of the example. Okay. So principle is that offspring is growing because of the benevolent care of the parent. So that's one aspect to understand here. Okay, that when Prabhupada gives analogies, the analogy doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as it gives us the principle, it explains the principle perfectly. That's one aspect to look at it. Another aspect to look at it that you can say that okay, science doesn't support this example of fish and the tortoise that Prabhupada is giving. But then we don't know that there might be some kind of fish or tortoise that does that. Right? Like for example, Vedas say that the lotuses are fragrant, but not every lotus is fragrant. So sometimes when we look at such examples, we have to understand that science is not perfect, has not reached the culmination. So we rely more on Vedas, right? For example, Vedas, even before science found it, it disclosed so many things like childbirth, how does the child grow in the mother's womb, and so forth. So whenever you read such analogies, which might sound very confusing or might not sound true, always look at it from these perspectives, as I mentioned. One, that as long as they're satisfying the principle, they're good enough for us. And secondly, if we are basing that, oh, this doesn't make sense because science doesn't prove it, we also have to understand that science also doesn't know everything. Another such question that comes to many of us, and people have asked me so many, they say that, oh, Prabhupada said that man didn't go to the moon. Okay. But some people believe that man went to moon. I don't have any bias either way. But then the important part was that when Prabhupada says man didn't go to the moon, he just didn't want his disciples to get excited about this war, because when he came, it was a big thing, America reaching the moon, because everybody had this, America is the world's greatest country thought in their minds. And his disciples were some of them were so fixed on that. So Prabhupada didn't want that to be a distraction for his disciples. So he said some things at that. So Prabhupada, the whole thrust of reasoning was that he has not come to tell us whether we have gone to the moon or not. Prabhupada didn't come to tell us that. He came to tell us how to go back to Krishna. But if people are so excited to go to moon, Prabhupada had to figure out ways so that people don't get distracted. Right? But some way or the other, try to bring your concentration back to Krishna. So when we look at the statement of Acharyas, we should also understand the purpose of the statement. So just wanted to bring this point out. You'll see all these sorts of statements Prabhupada would make, and you'll feel that, oh, this doesn't make sense, or no, this is not right. Prabhupada is wrong here. Prabhupada is never wrong. He comes with the purpose behind everything he says. So similar to the moon concept, over here also the concept that Prabhupada is mentioning about a fish and a tortoise. We just look at we understand the purpose of the statement. And the reason I discuss these is because it strengthens our commitment towards the bhakti process. When we discuss, Haribol.
Well, here's something I just thought of. Okay, you see right there where it says, I'm thinking of Krishna. Okay, well, how am I meditating on him? Well, I'm doing something physical too by constantly engaging Krishna consciousness. That's my meditation on him, right?
Yeah.
So the same thing, I'm meditating on my eggs while I'm in the water, but what did I do physically? What did I do? I laid the eggs in the earth. That is my physical thing. So while I meditate on Krishna, I'm what am I doing? Physically, I engage in his activity. So similarly, her meditation while they're in the water is her engagement is putting them in the land, isn't it?
Yes, that's the point. Yes. So what Prabhupada is giving us is that when we meditate on Krishna, even though we are far off from Krishna, then we are engaging, so what the Prabhupada is saying is that we can elevate ourselves to the abode simply by thinking of it. So as you're saying, right, the example that a tortoise, even though it's far off, it's still meditating on its babies, which are on the land in the soil. So in that way also, the tortoise is connected with his children. So by meditating. Similarly, when we meditate on Krishna, then we are also connected with Krishna. So that's the way of looking at the example. So as I was saying, understanding the concept, the principle is that the offspring is growing because there is a connection. The parent is meditating on it, and even Krishna is meditating on us, right? It's not just that we are trying to focus on Krishna. Krishna is also trying to focus on us. He's also trying to make a connection with us. So this is how the concept of Brahma Nirvanam takes place. Prabhupada is telling us. Was that what you were saying, Prabhu?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Krishna is never inattentive to us. That's the beauty. We might think that he's inattentive, but Krishna is never inattentive to us. And there's this verse that comes in the 8th canto where Gajendra, you all know the story of Gajendra. His foot is caught in there, and so there when Gajendra is making his prayers, in one of the prayers, Gajendra says, and I can probably share that. That's a very important prayer. Oh, we only have 1 minute left, so we'll do the remaining 3 next week. But here, let me just show you this one before we finish up. So this is the prayer of Gajendra, and what is being told here is that Gajendra is speaking. Since an animal such as me has surrendered unto you, who are supremely liberated, certainly you will release me from this dangerous position. Indeed, being extremely merciful, you incessantly try to deliver me. So what Gajendra is saying is that Krishna is always attentive towards me. It's just me who has disconnected from, who's diversed that relationship. And the word that comes here is alayaya, alayaya. This is 8.3.17 if somebody's keeping track at home. Alayaya. So Krishna is always. He's always attentive towards us. And that's what is given by the example. The tortoise is always attentive of his eggs in the soil on the beach, on the shore. So, but even though he's far off, so it's not just us trying to focus on Krishna, but Krishna is also trying to focus on us all the time. So there is a mutual relationship. I just have to show up in that relationship. Okay, 8:30. I'll take a pause here. We'll wrap up here. Any thoughts last minute?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, on verses 24, internally, you share that we should we have to work on our internal relationship with the Lord, and that strengthens us, and that's our japa, our reading and hearing. But I missed what you said externally we should do. You said internal, external, and
yes, every day we do services, right? So we do physical services also. We go to the temple, we cook for the deities, we clean the temple. All that is there. That's the external aspect. If I keep doing the external aspect without improving internally, then my growth will be limited. So I need to have a complete package, internal as well as external focus, to grow in bhakti. just what I meant.
Ramji, a different topic, on the closed book questions, so I don't know, I just had a humble request. I know you said on Saturdays you could meet with us if we have questions, but is it possible if we meet half an hour before Wednesday class? Would that schedule work if we meet and we have questions, since the closed book is coming up soon?
Okay, 6:30. I can do that, and not everybody has to attend it. Whoever has questions can attend it. That works.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know I was talking to one other attendee, and maybe it's also, it'll be an encouragement for us to finish it, because I know I finished chapter 1, but chapter 2, I had some questions, and
Okay.
I don't know if possible we
Yeah.
meet
So-
like
so
half
yeah,
an
let's,
hour before.
Yeah, let's think about it, Madhi, and I'm open to it. And whoever, if anybody else has any questions, they also can jump in. That's fine, Madhi.
Oh.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you, bro.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna.